Ici, le député d'Ottawa-Orléans. Est-ce que ça a marché? Mr. Speaker, it's a pleasure for me to address the House this morning to present the reasons for which I support Canada's Economic Action Plan 2013, Bill C-60. This plan, introduced by the best financial minister in the world, is thoughtful and reasonable, and most of all, it will help Canada with its economic recovery. The global economy is still weak, and the economies of several European nations are very precarious. The economy of the United States, our biggest trading partner, is shaky. Canada's per capita GDP has been higher than the U.S. since 2011. That's unprecedented. According to the highly reputable World Bank, Canada's per capita GDP was $50,343 in 2011, compared to $48,112 in the U.S. This performance is 5% higher in this country than it is with our southern neighbour. The World Bank also stated that Canada's per capita GDP growth outstripped that of our neighbours to the south. Depuis 2010, le PIB per capita a augmenté de 8,9% au Canada, comparativement à 3,2% d'augmentation chez notre partenaire économique le plus important. Selon le document produit par Statistique Canada, intitulé « Coup d'œil sur le Canada 2013 », le Canada a un PIB per capita supérieur à l'Allemagne, à la France et au Royaume-Uni. Pourtant, le gouvernement, modeste dans l'élaboration de ces réalisations, n'en parle peu. Sauf erreur, je suis le premier à informer la Chambre de ces statistiques. Canada is essentially an exporting country, and so our economic recovery continues to depend on foreign markets. Nevertheless, since the depth of the recession in July 2009, 1 million net new jobs have been created, the strongest economic growth of all the G7 countries. And 90% of this 1 million net new jobs are full-time, and 80% are in the private sector. Des organismes indépendants comme le Fonds monétaire international et l'Organisation de coopération et de développement économique prévoient que le Canada aura la plus forte croissance du G7 au cours des années à venir. D'ailleurs, le succès du plan d'action économique de 2013 est tel que l'opposition n'a pas posé une seule question au ministre des Finances, le meilleur ministre des Finances au monde, depuis plusieurs semaines déjà. Ce plan qui ne propose aucune hausse d'impôts, les petites et moyennes entreprises peuvent d'ailleurs respirer à l'aise depuis 2006. In 2006, a typical small business with taxable income of $500,000 paid on average nearly $84,000 in taxes. That amount has since dropped by $28,600 to $55,000. That's how we help businesses create jobs and drive innovation. So while the opposition parties want to increase taxes on all fronts, the government understood that low taxes are the best way to spur economic renewal.
Absolutely.
That is certainly why we were the last country to go into the recession and the first to get out of it.
Absolutely.
Grâce à notre bilan en matière d'allègement fiscal, une famille type économise plus de $3 200 en 2013. 1 million de Canadiens à faible revenu ne payent plus d'impôts. Nous gardons le cap sur un budget équilibré pour 2015. C'est une excellente nouvelle. Grâce aux mesures visant à baisser les dépenses et les revenus supplémentaires, à la réduction des frais de voyage grâce à la technologie, la poursuite des mesures de limitation en rémunération dans la fonction publique et l'élimination des échappatoires fiscales qui profitent à quelques contribuables, nous pourrons même compter sur un surplus d'environ 800 millions de dollars en 2015-2016. and that's a cautious projection. It should also point out that the net debt to GDP ratio is the lowest by far of all G7 countries. Moreover, the economic crisis hit our country. Before the economic crisis hit our country, the government paid down $37 billion of our debt, bringing it to the lowest level in 25 years. And we will balance the budget without doing so on the backs of the provinces, like the third party did in the 1990s. The 2013-14 federal government, in 2013-2014, the federal government will transfer $9 billion more to Ontario than did the previous government. And this funding will give Ontario a second wind, allowing it to pay for increasingly costly health care. By investing in transfers to the provinces, we will avoid the psychodrama that unfolded in Ontario with the closures of 44 hospitals in the 1990s. À cette époque, nous avions presque perdu le seul hôpital francophone à l'ouest du Québec, l'illustre hôpital Montfort. Un bon ouvrier se reconnaît à ses outils, dit l'adage. Le plan d'action économique de 2013 est justement là pour donner les bons outils aux Canadiens afin qu'ils brillent de par le monde. C'est statistiquement prouvé, plusieurs corps d'emploi spécialisés peinent à recruter du personnel. We see that 6% of scientific jobs are going unfilled. The figure for skilled jobs is 5.2%, and the national average is around 3.9%. If the companies that are having trouble recruiting staff were able to find what they are looking for, the unemployment rate would certainly reach record lows. This is why the government, under Bill C-60, aims to match Canadians with the jobs that are available. En impliquant les gouvernements fédéraux et provinciaux, avec la participation du secteur privé, nous pourrons investir jusqu'à 15 000 $ par personne pour aider les chercheurs d'emploi à acquérir les compétences requises pour occuper les emplois en demande. Et je souligne le mot « investir », car il s'agit bel et bien d'un investissement qui rapportera à moyen et à long terme. Nous continuerons à investir dans notre jeunesse, l'avenir de notre brillant pays. Le plan d'action économique du Canada 2013 propose de promouvoir l'éducation dans les domaines très en demande, comme les métiers spécialisés, les sciences, la technologie, le génie et les mathématiques. We want to support high school students at risk of dropping out with tutoring and mentoring. Giving these students a role model is one of the best things that we can do so that they can walk out of school with a diploma. Because we need to prepare for the future, the government also proposes to support young entrepreneurs by awarding $18 million to the Canada Youth Business Foundation. Young entrepreneurs will benefit from useful advice through mentoring, learning resources, and startup financing. The Canada Job Grant is not the only initiative that will make a big difference for the families of Ottawa-Orléans and elsewhere in the country. Before my first election to this House, 2,693 days ago, I had pledged to assist families who adopt children. Adopting a child is one of the noblest gestures that someone can do in our society. It gives an often needy child a chance to find a home and role models, thereby giving this child a much brighter future. Le projet de loi C-60 aidera les familles ayant ce beau projet en main. Afin de mieux tenir compte des frais que les parents adoptifs doivent engager avant d'être jumelés à un enfant, le crédit d'impôt pour les frais d'adoption permettra que certaines dépenses liées à l'adoption et qui sont engagées avant l'ouverture du dossier d'adoption de l'enfant soient admissibles. Under this tax credit, Canadians can claim adoption-related expenses as of the moment that they register with the provincial ministry responsible for adoptions or a government-certified organization, or as the moment of an adoption request is referred to a Canadian court. This tax credit will apply to all adoptions completed after 2012. Avec cette mesure, je souhaite de tout cœur que plus de jeunes enfants ayant besoin d'un foyer le trouvent. Families are also supported through various other initiatives, including expanding tax relief for home care services, simplifying the funeral and burial program for veterans, improving palliative care, and combating family violence. And I'm not just talking about what this government has done since 2006, such as the Universal Child Care Credit, the Family Caregiver Tax Credit, and the creation of the Registered Disability Savings Plan. Parlant de création d'emplois, il est important de souligner le travail colossal du ministre d'État aux sciences et la technologie dans le dossier du Conseil national de recherche du Canada, qui célébrera son centenaire en 2016. This agency, the National Research Council, employs 4,000 people in 50 locations across the country, one of which is at the doorstep of Ottawa-Orléans. The NRC is one of the pillars of Canada's innovation system. Unfortunately, over the past few decades, many innovations have languished on dusty shelves and have not been brought to market. And so the NRC, an agency that I value a great deal and have been supporting for several decades, will become more closely aligned with industry. Devant la concurrence mondiale qui s'intensifie et qui se complexifie, et dans laquelle le Canada doit se tailler une place, plus rien ne garantit un niveau de vie enviable dont nous jouissons. Devant ce constat, il nous faut agir. Nous devons encourager les entreprises à investir encore plus dans la recherche et le développement technologique pour s'assurer une croissance économique et une croissance économique durable pour le pays. En collaboration avec les industries canadiennes, grandes créatrices d'emplois, le CNRC travaillera à combler les lacunes technologiques du pays afin que le Canada demeure à l'avant-garde du point de vue économique. As part of this new approach, the NRC will support Canadian industries in large-scale research initiatives. As stated in Canada's Economic Action Plan 2013, the NRC will receive $121 million to support this new role. And under the Economic Action Plan, the government will also invest in world-class research and innovation by supporting advanced research and business innovation and by enhancing Canada's venture capital system. As many of you know, the spirit of volunteering and community support burns brightest in the constituency of Ottawa-Orléans. Je dénombre environ 300 organismes dans Ottawa-Orléans qui reposent essentiellement sur l'une des ressources naturelles les plus précieuses du pays, le bénévolat. Some of these agencies support seniors, like le Club 60, le Rendez-vous des aînés francophones d'Orléans, the Roy G. Hobbs Seniors Club. The Orleans branch of the Royal Canadian Legion is virtually at the center of veterans' social life in East Ottawa, and the list goes on. These agencies must raise funds to support their activities. In addition to the work of their dedicated volunteers, they need donations to survive. La philanthropie doit être encouragée. C'est ce que fait le plan d'action économique de 2013 avec son supercrédit pour un premier don de bienfaisance. Cette sage mesure a pour objectif d'encourager de nouveaux donateurs à faire des dons de bienfaisance. Ce supercrédit complète le crédit d'impôt pour les dons de bienfaisance en y ajoutant un crédit d'impôt de 25 % pour le premier don d'au plus $1,000. It's also innovative. Couples can share the super credit. With an economic recovery that was lagging due to economic instability in other countries, the government understood that it had to meet the demands of municipalities and move ahead with another plan for long-term investment in Canada's infrastructures. The City of Ottawa and the District of Ottawa-Orléans have benefited greatly from this economic stimulus program. We need only consider the construction of a light rail line in Ottawa, a total investment of $2.1 billion, $785 million of which is from the federal taxpayers through the Building Canada Plan and the Federal Gas Tax Fund. What the Economic Action Plan 2013 is proposing is $53 billion over 10 years. The City of Ottawa has been dealing with wastewater pouring into the Ottawa River for several years. Although sewers are obviously a municipal responsibility, the federal government has a role to play since the wastewater from the City of Ottawa is going into an interprovincial river between the provinces of Quebec and Ontario. And alas, water runs downhill. That's why the government has invested close to $33 million to help the city carry out the first of two phases, the first two phases of the Ottawa River Action Plan. Where this work is to be done, there is still work to be done. The third phase has not yet received funding. I sincerely hope that support can be provided through the revamped Building Canada Fund. Ainsi, les sages citoyens d'Ottawa-Orléans et de la région pourraient reprendre entièrement possession de l'île Petrie, joyau dans notre communauté. Lors de mon enfance, nous pouvions nous baigner dans la rivière des Outaouais, ce qui n'est plus recommandé. Il faut régler ce problème. Now, Building Canada is not the only infrastructure program under the Economic Action Plan of 2013. The government has introduced Community Improvement Fund, which will invest $32.2 billion over 10 years through the Gas Tax Fund and GST rebates to municipalities. The government also plans to renew P3 Canada Fund, which will invest $1.25 billion over 5 years to support projects through public-private partnerships. As you know, I'm a passionate advocate of our two official languages. Canada's linguistic duality is one of our greatest assets. C'est la raison pour laquelle j'ai appuyé sans réserve le projet de loi C-419 qui a été déposé par une députée d'en face, la distinguée députée de Louis-Saint-Laurent. Et je la salue de cette initiative. Le plan d'action économique 2013 comprend un plan d'action encore plus audacieux et l'investissement le plus généreux de notre histoire pour la promotion de 2 langues officielles. La nouvelle feuille de route continuera à appuyer l'apprentissage de l'anglais et du français en tant que langue seconde et poursuivra son appui au système scolaire en milieu minoritaire de manière à favoriser le développement des citoyens des communautés. In short, Canada's Economic Action Plan 2013 meets the high standards that we've come to expect of our Minister of Finance. It's a plan that calls us to action through sensible and targeted measures. Monsieur le Président, je vous remercie de votre bienveillante attention et je vous assure que j'accueillerai les questions de mes collègues avec le même respect.
And comments, questions or commentary. The Honourable Member for Parkdale High Park.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And as the official opposition finance critic, I had the privilege recently of hearing the testimony of Sonia Lheureux, the interim parliamentary budget officer, who gave an update to the Finance Committee. Now, she is the interim parliamentary budget officer, hand-selected by this government. And I'd like to quote what she said in her economic and fiscal update on the 29th of April from this year. And she said, and I quote, "The Canadian economy is currently 1.9% below its level of potential GDP. Our economy is underperforming. Canadian households are at a level of all-time personal debt. Companies are not investing. Our exports are in the tank. And the government is happy to spend tens of millions of dollars of public money advertising programs that no longer exist or don't yet exist." Now, I'd like the member opposite who just spoke to tell us why this government continues to put its foot on the brake, bring in austerity measures for Canadian households, but squander tax dollars for its own self-serving advertising.
The honourable member for Ottawa-Orléans.
Mr. Speaker, I'm honoured that the official spokesperson on finance should be the one to ask me the first question. It's very unfortunate that the official opposition enjoys talking down Canada's economy. They do it here in this place, they do it across the country, and they even do it in foreign capitals. This is shameful. I appreciate that the Parliamentary Budget Officer has mentioned that we are not reaching our full potential. You know what? I mentioned this in my own speech. We can do better, but we've got to pull together. But while we're at it, would it cost so much to admit that while we're not achieving our full potential, we are driving better than any of the other G7 countries?
Absolutely.
We have created over 1 million net new jobs since the depth of the recession. 90% of those jobs are full-time. 80% of them are in the private sector. And while the NDP and the Liberals play partisan games, our government is focused on what actually matters to Canadians, helping to create jobs and promote economic growth. The job creation in the month of May is just another positive mark in this travel.
His own comments. The honourable member for Markham Unionville.
And my colleague across the way keeps talking about how this government is lowering taxes. But I wonder if he's aware that their $333 million tariff hike means that cost of vacuum cleaners will go up by 5%, bicycles up by 4.5%, baby carriages up by 3%, plastic school supplies up 3.5%, scissors will go up 11%, ovens, cooking stoves and ranges will go up by 3%. Coffee makers' costs will go up 4%. On wigs, especially cosmetic wigs for cancer patients, the cost will go up a whopping 15.5%. So in light of all these price hikes, how can he possibly say that the government is lowering taxes?
The honourable member from Ottawa-Orléans.
I have some sympathy, sir, for people who need cosmetic wigs. I've decided that, in view of my own challenges, I'd wear a beret. It wasn't made in China, and so I had to pay a tariff on it. These tariffs that the third party wants to defend had been created and continue to exist for third world economies. The products that he just listed were at one time produced by a third world economy, the People's Republic of China. But they've done so well that they're no longer a third world economy. Right. And frankly, this government is focused on reducing taxes in Canada, not giving fiscal advantages to the People's Republic of China.
That's logical.
L'honorable député de Saint-Lambert.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Je voudrais tout de même préciser à mon collègue qu'on a assisté à la 42e motion d'attribution de temps en ce qui concerne précisément ce projet de loi et qu'on voit là une entorse significative à notre démocratie et la réduction des débats, une entorse, est véritablement de mettre le bâillon dans cette Chambre et empêcher que des débats aient lieu de façon constructive, c'est vraiment scandaleux. De plus, je rajouterai que seulement 2h15 sont mentionnées en ce qui concerne ce projet de loi en troisième lecture. De plus, les conservateurs se servent de ce projet de loi omnibus pour imposer sournoisement des changements. Il y a, entre autres, des effets d'annonce en ce qui concerne un plan économique, selon les dires de mon collègue audacieux, mais en même temps agrandir le cabinet, tout en disant aux Canadiens que les coffres sont vides lorsque vient le temps de fournir des services comme l'assurance emploi et la sécurité de la vieillesse. Notre collègue peut-il nous expliquer cette situation?
L'honorable député de Ottawa-Orléans.
les principes de base de la démocratie sont très importants. C'est pour ça que nous sommes tous ici. Nous sommes ici parce que la démocratie l'a bien voulu. Et c'est à cause de la démocratie que la collègue d'en face est ici depuis le 2 mai 2011. Tout autant qu'elle aimerait défendre la démocratie, elle devrait reconnaître que cette démocratie a bien voulu que la formation politique qui s'assoit à votre droite, Monsieur le Président, et le gouvernement légitime du pays. J'admets que depuis un certain temps, nous devons prendre certaines mesures pour accélérer le programme du gouvernement. Mais il n'y a pas de surprise dans l'ordre du jour du gouvernement. Ce que nous faisons, c'est exactement ce que nous avions dit aux électeurs que nous ferions. Et la plupart des choses que nous débattons maintenant sont des choses qui ont été débattues pendant la 39e législature, pendant la 40e législature, des mesures que l'opposition en ligue, les uns avec les autres, avait bloquées. Maintenant, ils sont un peu tristes et déboussolés parce qu'ils ne peuvent plus bloquer les intentions du gouvernement qui, elles, avaient déjà été entérinées par la population.
Questions and comments. The honourable member for Okanagan-Shuswap.
Mr. Speaker, in my riding of Okanagan-Shuswap, it's a destination for people to retire, and our government was the first government to establish a Minister of State for seniors, and we've managed to have a number of initiatives to help seniors income splitting so they can afford to retire, and initiatives to provide protection for seniors and ensure that because they have become such a large portion of our population, that we've incorporated that as part of our action plan and in our budget. Could I ask the member if he could just, I know he's a little bit younger and he's probably not familiar with seniors' issues, but could he please answer what is there in the budget for seniors?
The honourable member for Ottawa-Orléans.
I thank my former seatmate, whose wisdom always radiates in any room he enters. In the 2012 and 13 fiscal year, tax breaks for seniors and retirees reach $2.5 billion. Some people can't count that far.
Absolutely.
Thanks to the Protecting Canada Seniors Act, offenders who abuse seniors will receive harsher sentences. There is a $1.5 billion increase in the Canada Income Supplement over 5 years, which will improve the standard of living of nearly 700,000 of Canada's most vulnerable seniors.
Good news.
And the creation of the new tax credit of up to $2,000 for family caregivers. There's a $400 million investment over 2 years to build affordable housing for seniors under Canada's Economic Action Plan. I could go on and on.
That's what I wanted to hear.
Resuming debate. Will you please